Hey, Mario.
How are you?
Good. Are we on Daled?
Number 3.
Gimel?
Yeah.
Okay. A little
So he's
Chazara.
doing two. He says he's doing 2 blood today.
Okay. It's not hard blot, whatever.
But they're long.
Yeah.
Mr. Alange.
What's going on tonight?
I don't know.
Let me try and call him.
Okay.
Oh, what's today? Thursday?
Yeah,
They probably are still at the Tzvika.
probably.
Did he say what time tomorrow is, the March here?
Not yet. He has not told me.
Okay. He'll come, I guess he finished week this year. They probably went overtime.
What?
They probably went overtime and by this year.
Oh, I wouldn't know because I never do it. So
Yeah. All right.
that share is above my pay grade. Ah, I'll try and call him. Okay. He's getting in now, he says.
There we go.
Yes, early. All right.
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem shalom, Doc.
Okay, let's get going. We're on Daf Beis, Amud Beis.
Oh, okay.
We're on Masnisim Deloki Haitana. It's about halfway down the block. The Tanya Rabbi Shua ben Karcha Oimer, Krochin and Mukafim Chami Mosach Hashverosh, those walled cities that have a wall around it from the time of Hashverosh, Korin B'Chamishas. My time to Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, Ki Shushan. It's going to be like Shushan. Ma Shushan Mukafim Chami Mosach Hashverosh. Just like Shushan was walled in the time of Achashverosh for Korin B'Chamishas, Av Kol Shem Mukafim Chami Mosach Hashverosh, Korin B'Chamishas. So too, that applies to all cities. Now, our Tana learned that it had to do with cities that were walled since the time of Yoshua ben Nun, right? Tana Didan, my time. Yolav Prozi. They learn a Hekesh. Ksiv Hachal Kenya Yehudim HaProzi in the Megillah. Ksiv Hasam Levad Maria Prozi Arbe Miod. When it talked about the cities in Sefer Dvorim, about walled cities, it talked about the area Prozi. Malahala Mukafes Chami Mas Yoshua ben Nun. Yoshua ben Nun was alive then. Afkan Mukafes Chami Mas Yoshua ben Nun. So Bishma Yoshua ben Karcha Loi Omar Ketana Didan. Yoshua ben Karcha learned that it had to be when Achashverosh built it, the Leslie Prozi. He didn't learn of that Hekesh. Elatana Didan, my time Elo Omar Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha. So our Tana, who learned like that it was Yoshua ben Nun, how come he doesn't learn like Yoshua ben Korcha? My timer, the Islay Prozi. We just said because he has a Hekesh. Hachi Kamer, Ela Shushan of the Keman. So then who did Shushan do? Lo Kiprozim. So Shushan didn't read on the 15th, and it didn't read like the regular cities. It read on the 15th, and yet it was not Mukav Choima. So how come the people in Shushan read the Megillah on the 15th? Amar Rav of Amir Kadi, Shiny Shushan of Anasa Bones. You know what? Shushan is different. The Nes occurred in Shushan. And that's why they had a celebration there like that. But other walled cities are only considered walled if they were walled from the time of Yoshua. Bishmal Tani Yidon, our Tana that learned it has to do with Yoshua ben Nun, Hainu Dichsiv, Medina, Medina, Ve'ir. And how do we learn? Medina Lachalik ben Mukafim Chomis Mas Yoshua ben Nun, Mukavis Chomis Chachashverosh. Medina said, one refers to a city that had a wall from Yoshua, and the other has a wall from Achashverosh. Ir nami lachalik ben Shushan l'shar yaros. So Shushan was also, we see, made a difference between regular cities and Shushan. El Rabbi Shua ben Korcha, what is he learning? Bishma Medina lachalik ben Shushan l'shar yaros. He had enough community between Shushan and other cities. El ir ve'ir l'mayasa. According to Rabbi Shua ben Korcha's method of learning, what is he learning from year to year? It's also not good for our Tana either, regarding the one who held Yoshua ben Nun. Given the Islay Prozi, if he already has a Hekesh, Medina Lamali. El Kra Lidrasha Udasa came to teach me a drasha. Can Rabbi Shua ben Levi Udasa? Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Krach, means a big city is even a city that's next to it, and even a city that can be seen from it would be treated like a mukefes choima. Ad kama, what distance is this? On Rav Yirmiyah v'yitem Rav Chia Barava kechamson l'Tveria. Chamson were the hot springs, and from the hot springs to Tveria, which is a kilometer. Velema mill. Why did it say kechamson l'Tveria? Just say a mill. Hakamashmalan the shiur the mill. Kamahavi kechamson l'Tveria. How much is a mill? A mill is the shiur from Chamson to Tveria. V'am Rav Yirmiyah v'yitem Rav Chia Barava. Minatzpech, the fact that the mem has a mem sofit and the nun has a nun sofit and the tzadik has a tzadik sofit. These are all the letters in the Hebrew alphabet that have a different version of their letter when it's in the middle of the word versus if it's in the end of the word. Who gave us that principle? Tzoifin Amrum. The Nevi'im of later generations told they were machadish this. you have to excuse me. I had a little procedure. It wasn't a little procedure, it was a major procedure. And it's not easy for me to sit. So I have to adjust myself on some pillows here. Okay. Freit the Gemara v'tizbara, is that so? V'haksiv eila mitzvahs she'ein navi r'shai l'chadesh davar me'ata. So first of all, when it says eila mitzvahs, it teaches me that a later navi after the Torah cannot be l'chadesh something new. So how can you tell me that all of a sudden the Nevi'im came up with new letters? V'od. And here's a bigger kasha. Amar Rav Chisda mem v'samech shebeluchos b'nei sayu oimdim. So the mem sofit, we know that the luchos were created through and through. So it was engraved through and through. Well, a mem has a hole all the way around it. So how did that little piece inside sit there? It was benes. Well, those are only a problem if you have a mem sofit. A regular mem doesn't have that problem. But a mem sofit, which is a square, will have that problem. A samech is not a problem because it's in the middle of a word. But a mem, well, if the mem in the luchos was a nace, it's clear that we're talking about a mem sofit. Well, if it's a mem sofit, then the mem sofit existed before the Nevi'im. That's the Gemara's kasha. So the Gemara says, no, they knew about the mem sofit. They were still not sure whether the mem we have that's in the middle of the letter, middle of a word, was supposed to be in the middle, or maybe that was supposed to be in the end. And the mem sofit that we had, maybe they thought that was in the middle. The Nevi'im came and taught us which is which. That the mem sofit goes at the end, and the other mem goes in the middle. Psuchim be'emtza teva u'sesumim b'sof teva. Says the Gemara, sof eila mitzvah she'ein navi osid l'chadish davar me'ata. We're back to the question, well, but a navi cannot be machadish anything on the Torah. Ella shachachum v'chazru v'yostum. So the Gemara basically takes the easy way out and says, you know what, they did exist, even in the time. So it was not an issue of a navi being machadish something new. It existed, they just forgot of where to put these letters. And the Nevi'im came back and taught us the halachas again. There's a very interesting sugya, one of the most interesting sugyas in all of Shas. I've come across this sugya many times. It's wild because we know that the Torah is written in Ksav Ashuri, right? There's a if you look in ancient Canaan archaeology, you'll see ancient Hebrew was written different than our current Hebrew. Ezra HaSofer is called Ezra HaSofer because he instituted Ksav Ashuri. We're going to have other Gemaras, I think, later on in Megillah that describe that, which is our square letters. If you look at our Sefer Torahs, they're square. And that's Ksav Ashuri only came about at the time of Ezra. Well, the question is, how are our Sefer Torah written? I mean, our Sefer Torah are all Ksav Ashuri, but Ksav Ashuri is a very late development. And the Menatzech Tzufim is also about Ksav Ashuri. So we're going to have to say that all of Ksav Ashuri, and who's going to say that our Sefer Torahs are not like the Sefer Torahs given by Har Sinai? No one's going to say that. But we know there was no Ksav Ashuri for 700 years to follow. So they're going to say Shachachum v'chazru v'yostam. In the end, they're going to say, well, Ksav Ashuri existed then, but then they forgot it, and Ezra came back and reinstituted it. So I'm giving you an alert that sugya is going to come up as well, but it's connected to this sugya. Any comments? No. Okay. Rav Yirmiyah v'Tem Rav Chia Barava. Targum shel Torah, the translation of the Torah into Aramaic, which we have next to every Chumash, Unclus Hager Omro. Unclus the Ger, he was a Tana, Mipi Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, who heard it from Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Now, Targum Shel Nevi'im, Yonasan ben Uziel, Amro. Yonasan ben Uziel is one of the Talmidim of Hillel. But he said it, Mipi Chagai Zechariah Umalachi. The three Nevi'im that were still alive in the time of the Anshe Knesset Agdolah. And when Yonasan ben Uziel wrote that Targum, Nizdaza Eretz Yisrael Arba Mios Parsel Arba Space, but it was like Eretz Yisrael shook 400 miles by 400 miles. Yatsa Baskal v'Amra, Miuzeh Shegilas Yisrael Livnei Adam. Who is the person that revealed my secrets to the human being? Amad Yonasan ben Uziel al Ragla v'Amanihu, Shegilisi Sarecha Livnei Adam. I'm the one who revealed your secrets. I didn't do it for my honor. I didn't want there to be machloikes. I wanted everyone to understand this pshat. If there's no accepted perush, there's going to be machloikes. If you have a targum which gives you the answer, there's less machloikes. V'od bikesh legalo is targum shel ksuvim. So we have targum Yonasan on Nevi'im, but we don't have it in ksuvim, like the 5 Megillos and Sefer Daniel and Ezra V'Soifer. So he wanted to write that as well. No, enough. My time. Why did the Baskol not want Yonasan ben Uziel to write the Targum for Ksuvim? Because if he would have written it, we would have known when the Mashiach was coming. Okay. The Targum shel Torah Unclus Ager Amro. Is it correct that Unclus wrote the Targum? V'ha'amar Rav Ika bar Avin Rav Chanan el Rav Maidich Siv v'yikaru b'sefer Toras Elohim meforash v'som sechel v'yavinu b'mikra. And the Gemara darshans v'yikru b'sefer Toras Elohim ze mikra. That's Chumash, or that's the Hebrew. Meforash ze Targum. V'som sechel elo psukim. How we divide psukim into psukim. V'yavinu b'mikra elo piskei tamim. The trop. V'amri lo elo masoires kriyu ksiv. So here Targum was written earlier. Where it says shachachu mechazra v'yostum. What Unclus Hager was forgotten and he brought it back. Now, why Maishna Doraisa Delo is Dazda? How come the Targum Unclus, which was written on the Torah, the Eretz Yisrael did not shake? Vad Nevi is done, but it did shake by Nevi'im. Doraisa Mifra Shemilsa. You know, when you learn Torah, you can understand the pshat. But the Nevi ikemila de Mifra Shem, ikemila de Mistapin. Some things are very understandable. Some things are completely closed. And without a Targum, we wouldn't have understood it. On that day, Yigdala Misped Yushalayim, Misped Hadrimon Bevikas Megidon. The hesped in Yerushalayim will be as great as the hesped of Hadrimon. We wouldn't we wouldn't have understood what this is. What's the Targum? B'yomahi Yizge Misped of Yerushalayim Kemisped of the Achav Bar Amri de Kotel Yosei Hadrimon ben Tavrimon Beramos Gilad. This was the hesped of Achav who was killed by Hadrimon, and Kemisped Yoshio Baramon de Kotel Yosef Paro Chagira Bevikas Megiddo. This is the hesped of Yoshia. Melech Yoshia was killed by Paro Necho in Megiddo. Then Vra'isiani Daniel Avadia Samara. I, Daniel, myself, saw the vision. Daniel had a vision, famous vision of 4 animals, and it represented the 4 Golios, the exile that Klal Yisrael was going to be destined to be in. But V'anoshim asher hayu imi, who was Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, who weren't any slouches, they were the Nevi'im, lo ra'u et Tamara. They did not see the vision that I saw. But they were fearful and they ran and hid. Who were these people? In some ways, they are greater than me. In some ways, I'm greater than them. They are greater than me. The inu nevi'e, they are nevi'im. I Daniel lav navi. Daniel was not a navi. Now, what does it mean he's not a navi? One of the Sifrei Tanakh is written by Daniel. No, Daniel, he was not sent for us to reveal his chezyonis to other people. He wasn't sent by Hashem for that reason. He had his own tafkid, but not, he was the Nevi'im that we have 48 Nevi'im that were sent as shlichus of Hashem to write certain messages for us. Daniel wasn't sent with that. It was a story that happened to Daniel, but he was not a Navi. We know in Shmuel, there were thousands, millions of Nevi'im in the time of Shmuel. He taught the Kata Nevi'im we've had now in Sefer Shmuel. But not every Navi wrote something that was L'doiros. Chazal tells 48 Nevi'im, the Zion Nevi'ot, were prophets and prophetesses that wrote for the generation. So, Iyu odif minayu, but in some ways I'm greater than them. The Iyu chazal, the Inu lo chazu. I saw the Mara, but they did not see it. Now, the pasuk says that they ran away because they were afraid. Well, if they didn't see anything, why were they afraid? So, Afagav, here's another very. One second. If they didn't see anything, why were they afraid? So their mazel saw it. They didn't see it, but their neshama saw it. So they felt that there was something scared there. So, for example, you're walking in the street, and all of a sudden you're afraid. You didn't see something, but your mazel saw something. So, my takante, what should you do? Likras Kriya Shema. You should read Kriya Shema. Now, if you're in a dirty place where you can't read Kriya Shema, linshof neduchte arba garmidi, jump away 4 amas. V'ilo lemahachi, you should say, Iza de beitab chashmein minoi. The goat that's in the butcher house is fatter than me. And that'll ward off whatever is frightening you. So what do we learn from Mishpachu Mishpacha? Rav Yossi bar Chanina, lahavi mishpachot kuna levia shemevatlin avodason uvoin lishma mikra megillah. It teach me halacha that Kohanim and Levim that are doing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash can be mevatel the avodah and come here mikra megillah because of the mitzvah of Pirsum Hanes. David Amarav Kohanim b'avodason Levim b'duchanim yisrael b'modam kulam mevatlin avodason uvoin lishma mikra megillah. Mikra megillah is doicha the avodah. They all come and hear Mikra Megillah. Mikan samchu shel beis Rebbe shemavatlin Talmud Torah uboin lishma Mikra Megillah. That in the yeshiva of Rebbe, they stopped learning to come listen to Mikra Megillah. Kal v'chomer ma'avoda, they learned the Kal v'chomer. U'ma'avoda shi chamura. Avoid is very chomer. Mevatlin on Talmud Torah lo kol shekain. Talmud Torah's shkula keneged kulam certainly should be mevatel. V'avoida chamur mi Talmud Torah. That comes out the way you constructed this kavachomer, that Torah is more. No, that if you have if avoida does it, certainly Talmud avoida chamur mi Talmud Torah is avoida more chamer than Talmud Torah. V'aksid. V'hibios I'll show you that Talmud Torah is greater than avoida. So it's not a real good kavachomer. Where do we see that Talmud Torah is greater than avoida? V'aksid. V'hibios Yoshua b'Yericho. After they were in Yericho and they won the victory there. He saw somebody standing, and Yoshua saw somebody standing. Is a malach. Now, hechi avid hachi. How did he say shalom aleichem? Rav Yosef ben Levi also learned him shita and shalom chaver balayla. Chayshin and shama shade. You shouldn't say shalom aleichem. Maybe it's a shade. Shani also damer like kiani sar tzva Hashem. He introduced himself as ani sar tzva Hashem. More of a dilem meshakri. Maybe he's lying. Gemiri dilem mafki shem shamayim. A shade is not. Nobody's going to say shem shamayim levatala, and therefore it's obviously not a shade. Amr lo. What did the malach say? Emesh bitatem tamid shel ben arbaim. Yesterday, because of the milchama, you didn't offer the tamid of the afternoon. V'achshav bitatem tamid Torah. Now you bring mevatel tamid Torah. Amr lo. Yoshua asked him, Al eze man bat, on what sin have you come for? Amr lo atabasi, for the current sin that you're not learning Torah. Miyad, vayalan Yoshua balayla u betocha emek. What does it say that he slept in the valley? No. He dwelled in the valley of halacha. That means he was oisik in oimek of Torah. Amr Shmuel bar Unya. Gadol Talmud Torah yosem ekrovas tmidim. Talmud Torah is bigger than the tmidim. Sheneamar atabasi, because when he asked the malach on what sin you come from, it was a bittul Talmud Torah, not bittul korbanos. Afraid to go. So how come over there you set up a kavachomer that avoida was greater than Torah? Loi kasha. Ha de Rabbim. Talmud Torah of Rabbim is more important than avoida. So that's why Yoshua had to learn and study with Klal Yisrael. V'ha de Yachid. And Talmud Torah of Yachid is not doicha the korban. Right? The more de Yachid kal is Yachid studying Torah lenient vatnan. Noshim b'moed ma'anois. Women during Chol HaMoed can act in a form of inui during a funeral. What they say kinos, each one individually, avalom etapchos, but they don't bang on their chests. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, because on Moed we reduce the kind of funeral we do. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, hayu smuchos lamita, if they're right next to the coffin, metapchos, they can hit themselves. B'Rosh Chadosh b'Chanukah v'Purim, which have a less status of yontiv, ma'anus u'metapchus b'zeh. They can do both. They can say kinas and they can strike themselves. Avaloi mekoninois. They don't wail and cry out. And that one person says a kina, and people answer them. That's mekoninois. V'amar Avravuna ein moed b'ftei Talmid Chacham. These laws don't apply to Talmid Chacham. Kol shekein Chanukah u'Purim. Meaning, so you see, Torah is even stronger. So the Gemara says, Kovet Torah comment, you bring me a proof from Kovet Torah? There's a difference. There's Kovet Torah and there's Talmud Torah. Kovet Torah the Yachid Chamur. Talmud Torah the Yachid is Kal. Honor of it. Pshitali, that Avoidu Mikra Megillah, if you have a fight between Korbanos and Mikra Megillah Adif. We already learned that from Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina. Talmud Torah Mikra Megillah Adif. We learned that Midas Samchus Shel Beis Rebbe. The yeshiva of Rebbe closed down to go listen to the Megillah. What about Talmud Torah u'meis mitzvah? You have a mace, a dead person who doesn't have anyone to bury him. He's a meis mitzvah, and you're in the yeshiva. Meis mitzvah adif. You can be mevatel Talmud Torah to go bury a meis mitzvah. In the Tanya, mevatel Talmud Torah loitzos meis ulachnosas kala. For burial and for bringing in a kala into chuppah.
Is Meis Mitzvah a Docha Shabbos?
No.
Esadocha Losaseh.
Kvura is not doicha Shabbos, Elazar.
Esadocha Losaseh. Is it Losaseh v'Eseh? Meis mitzvah. Shabbos is Eseh and Losaseh. So it's Esadocha Losaseh. Ein Esadocha Losaseh v'Eseh, right?
You can't. Yeah, there's no a mace is muktzah on Shabbos. We don't bury maceim on Shabbos.
Is it because of Ein Esadocha Losaseh v'Eseh, right? Normally you say Esadocha Losaseh, but because Shabbos is Eseh and a Losaseh, Eseh can be a Mavatal Shabbos.
Shabbos is both a los aseh and an aseh. There's an
Right.
aseh of shvisa and a los aseh of los aseh malach.
Right, okay.
But this is not. This is referring to a mace mitzvah, where if you
So
have,
I'm saying, so this is a Meis Mitzvah. So is that more? I mean, that's more Chomer
it's
than.
not doicha Shabbos.
Okay, Meis
It's
Mitzvah
still a
then.
mace. It's still a mace, and a mace is muktzah.
No, but so Muktzah is not derisa though.
No, muktzah is not deraisa, but there's an aseh of kvura.
So why isn't the Meis Mitzvah docha?
Forget about a mace. Why is a mace? What about a regular mace?
Okay, because you can do it tomorrow.
No, but you can do a mace mitzvah tomorrow too. Mace mitzvah doesn't have anybody to bury you.
The whole purpose of Meis Mitzvah is docha everything is because we're afraid that the body's going to be taken away by it.
It's not. It's not doich everything. In these are mitzvot saseis, Mikra Megillah, Talmud Torah. Excuse me, Talmud Torah, Mikra Megillah. Both are mitzvot sasei. Mikra Avoda, Mikra Megillah. They're all aseis, but one has preference over the other, either because of svara or because of psukim. Like we learned, Mikra Megillah because of Pirsum Anes is over avoda. Talmud Torah Mikra Megillah because we saw the yeshiva of Rabbi. Talmud Torah Meis Mitzvah is Meis Mitzvah Adif. They're both aseis. You're learning Torah. Should you stop learning Torah to bury the mace? The sugya you're talking about is a whole different sugya of whether you have an asay is doicha los asay. That's in Yevamis. We're gonna have a whole 5-page sugya there. But here, right now, there's no lav here. They're both mitzvahs asay, but there's a kadima. One goes before the other. So Talmud Torah makes mitzvah adif. And we can be mevatel Talmud Torah to bury a mace mitzvah. But by the way, let's say you have another mace who has his family. You're not mevatel Talmud Torah, but because they have there's somebody to be ma'asik with that mace, so you're not allowed to be mevatel Talmud Torah if you have a shir at that time, even though it's a mitzvah to go, because Talmud Torah is more chomer.
I mean, the difference here,
than avoida.
I mean, the whole thing of Meis Mitzvah is because we're afraid that it's going to be, an animal is going to take it away. If you don't, a regular mace, you're not worried because people will take care of him. But a Meis Mitzvah, you find it out in the field, you can't leave it there because an animal is going to come and take it away.
Yeah, but you can put a shomer there. You're not required. If it's Shabbos, you put a shomer there. You're not required to bury it. You can't mevatel Shabbos for that reason.
So how can anything be mevatel Shabbos? How can any mace be mevatel Megillah? I mean, how anything you do the same thing. I'm sure you do the next day.
No, so if right now you have a mace mitzvah and you have Talmud Torah, you're allowed to be mevatel. You're learning to bury the mace but not a regular. But Tosfos says any mace. Lav davka mace mitzvah who adin lachol mesim sheba olam mevatel Talmud Torah lo yitziyam. And I did not get the samach gabay lachoyso mace mitzvah chanami another. But by a funeral is doicha Talmud Torah, not just.
Okay.
Midatanya. Mevatlin Talmud Torah lo yitzas mace ulachnosas kala. It's a beraisa. You can mevatel learning for any mace, not just a mace mitzvah. And for achnosas kala. What about avoda u'mace mitzvah? You have kohanim doing work in the Beis Hamikdash. You have a mace mitzvah. Meis mitzvah adif. Based on what? Mivela achosa. Because by a nazir it says Kol Yemei Haziro LaHashem, all the days that a nazir has been a nazir, al nefesh meis lo yavo. He cannot be metame himself. Even la'aviv le'imo, la'achiv la'choso, lo yitame lehem b'mosam. A nazir is like a kohen gadol. Even on aviv ve'imo, he cannot be metame. So the Tanya, ula achoisoi. Now, ma tamad loimer. What does al achoisoi come to teach me? Harei shaya hoylech lishchot et pischo. Now, this is an assay, but this is a special assay that what? That if you mavatal it, you're chayiv kores. What's the other mitzvah assay? Lo mulas beno, right? Mila and Korban Pesach are the two mitzvah assays that if you don't do them, you get kores. V'shama shemes lo meis. So I might think Yachol Yitame that you should stop and occupy yourself with the mace. Amrit lo Yitame. No, because these are mitzvah sasays that if you mevatel them, you don't do them, you're going to be chayiv kares. To that extent, we don't make you stop. So Yachol kashem sheinu metame lachoisoi, kacheinu metame lameis mitzvah. Now, the pasuk said, Li'imo la'aviv li'imo la'achiv lachoiso lo Yitame. So I might think, just like you can't be metame to achoisoi, a nazir. Maybe he cannot be metame to a meis mitzvah. Talmud loimer v'lachoisoi. Lachoiso hu de'enu metame, ava metame lemeis mitzvah. A nazir can break his naziris for a meis mitzvah, based on this drasha. Okay, boy Rava. Based on the equations we just did, mikra megillah umeis mitzvah heiminayu adif. If you are, it's Purim, and they're laying the Megillah now, there's a meis mitzvah. Which do you do? Do we say mikra Megillah adif mishum pirsume nisa? Because that's why pirsume nisa trumped Talmud Torah and the other things. Or dilma meis mitzvah adif mishum kavod abrios. What's the issue of meis mitzvah? You have a human being lying outside in a non-kavodic way, and kavod abrios is doich everything in the Torah. We'll see in a minute. Basar the boy hadar pashta. Meis mitzvah adif. Meis mitzvah will trump mikra Megillah. Why? Damar called kavod abrios. Gadol kavod abrios shedoiches loisase shebetoyra. So kavod abrios is greater, will violate. Now, let's understand something. When it says this, it refers to lo sosur. You can kavod abrios isn't doiche and asay in a Torah. This is a huge sugya, but in the normative halacha is kavod abrios is only doicha rabbinic law. It's not doicha Torah law. Here it comes out that it was doicha Torah law because it breaks his nazirus. But it's the problem of the bizoyna meis, not the aseh of the kvura. Now Rashi learns that it's the bittul of mitzvah aseh of hashavas aveda because it's a bizoyon. It has to do with covet of the person who finds the mace. But most of the Rishonim don't learn that way. It's the sugi in the Gemara's other places that here we're talking only about the bittul of lo soser. That gzeres chachamim and their isurim can be mizbatal b'kavod abrios, but not other. Now there are people who learn that you can be doicha mitzvah in the Torah b'sheva al taisa by kavod abrios, just like we do by lula by shofar. We say don't blow the shofar. Sheva al taisa, don't blow. So they can do the same thing by certain restrictions of kavod abrios. And certainly by mitzvahs midrabanan, even bekum aseh, it doesn't have to be b'shev al taisa if all you're violating is a rabbinic. But there's there's a lot of discussion between the Rishonim and the Achronim regarding this. Weiter. Gufa. Amr Yisrael ben Levi krach v'kol hasamach lo v'kol hanirach imon nidon kekrach. The big city and anything that can be seen there from, if you're far away but you can see the city, you treat it like you read it on the 15th. Samach afal pishen nira, meaning you're near even though you don't see it. Near afal pishen samach. Now what's this? Bishman near afal pishen samach. You can see it even though it's not close. Mishkach like going to Yasser Mashor. Let's say it's on a big mountain, so you can see the krach even though it's far away. If it's close, you can't see it. So Rav Yirmiyah, it's in a valley. It's close, but you can't see it. Initially, the city didn't have a wall, and it was settled first, and then got a wall. So it's nidin kikfar. It's not treated like a big city. My timer. It's gotta have a choma from the beginning. Shehukov l'vasof yashav has to be walled and then settled. The lo sheyashav l'vasof hukav. Rabbi Ben Levi krach shein bo asar batlanim. A big city that doesn't have 10 people learning in a koilel. That's basically what it means, batlanim. Nidon kikfar. It's not a big enough city to be treated like a krach. My kamash lantanina. Ezo what's considered a big city? Kol sheyesh basar batlanim. It's got 10 people who aren't working. They're just learning Torah. Pachos mikana raise a kvar, otherwise a village. So krach it's for krach. Afal gav de miklele ma'alma, meaning people visit there. They don't have 10 permanent, but now sometimes it has 10. You might think that will fulfill it. It doesn't. Rabbi Ben Levi, krach shecharav v'asaf yashav. Let's say it was destroyed and then rebuilt. Nidon kekrach. If it was resettled after being destroyed, it comes back as a krach. My charav. So does it mean the walls were destroyed? And yashav in lo yashav lo? And only if it had been dwelled there before would it work? Vatan Rav Eliezer ben Yossi Omer. Asher lo choma means avol pishein lo achshav v'haya lo kodem l'chein means even if it doesn't have now, but it had before, it's considered like a walled city. Elamai charav me'asra batlonim. That means a city didn't have 10 batlonim. Amir Yeshua ben Levi, we're on Dalet Amid Aleph.
Ernie, we are now in
Dalet.